Hello wonderful interpreters, and thank you again for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to be addressing PERC's decision on our complaint against LNI and what really happened. I will also be debunking much of the misinformation going around, so let's get started. This image is from a video that we published on October 2nd last year explaining the PERC election process. You can see from their website that you need 30% of signed cards from workers submitted to PERC in order to file for a representation petition, which it is a card like this, including the worker's signature, not some online petition. As you remember, we were the union that filed first for representation and reached 30% of cards. After we assisted PERC in fixing a very inaccurate list of employees from LNI, PERC confirmed that we had submitted the required 30% to start the election. However, WFSE appealed that decision, of course, since they were afraid to compete with us since the beginning. Dario de la Rosa from PERC also provided the number of eligible workers who will vote in the election, which is a little over 1,200 interpreters only. PERC also provided us with the correct amount of cards submitted by each competing interest, confirming our lead with 372 valid cards, while WFSE only produced 208 cards. Also, the group known as Interpreters Rising, who submitted their cards after the deadline, only produced 125 cards, and their participation is challenged by PERC's policy, as we have explained to you before. More on that later. You have also seen the real numbers from each competing interest according to PERC, showing that we generated more valid cards than both organizations combined when it really mattered months ago. In the end, PERC's commission denied WFSE's appeal and sided with PERC to allow the election to move forward. And that's the way WFSE failed another attempt to stop the election. You also remember that we filed our complaint against LNI on March 29th earlier this year, and we wanted to have the hearing and the election at the same time, which LNI's lawyers did not object to our proposal in a very surprising move, everybody. But WFSE still tried to delay the election and filed a bogus copycat complaint 4 months after we filed the original complaint against LNI, and of course they asked PERC to delay the election. They followed up with this email confirming their intention to deprive LNI interpreters from having a fair election. Since we filed first, we formally requested PERC to proceed with the election at the same time with our complaint process, since PERC's policies actually allow for that scenario. However, the group known as Interpreters Rising decided to join WFSE in order to delay the election, a slap in the face to all of us LNI interpreters who sorely need a union since a long time ago. PERC decided to postpone the election until after the hearing and offered earlier dates to expedite the process, but the WFSE and LNI lawyers were suddenly unavailable until September. You remember this. Now, you've been following the hearing videos that I've posted, witnessing how the WFSE lawyers shamelessly questioned our witnesses and assisted LNI's lawyers to make their case, in my opinion. PERC finally reached a decision and dismissed both complaints on November 23rd, just a few days ago. However, while our ULP got dismissed, it wasn't because we were wrong about the law, because we actually articulated the law factually and correctly. Mr. Schneider was just not convinced with our view that this implementation was not part of the dynamic status quo in spite of the evidence. We've explained this to you before. Mr. Schneider chose to interpret things differently and made a decision mostly based on subjective arguments, in my humble opinion. So we respectfully disagree. For example, here he agrees that not all interpreters were notified of the changes, but argues that 40% of interpreters who got paid in 2019 signed up with Interpreting Works by November last year, as if that somehow shows that enough people expected these changes. And what about the actual majority of a grand total of 60% of interpreters who had not signed up and who were not properly informed, therefore not expecting these changes? Mr. Schneider also argues that LNI had signed the contract and was not able to reverse it? But they were able though, since they had discretion plus 3 choices of implementation, and the implementation was not even happening yet. Besides, Where is the concern for the workers affected negatively with this change of working conditions instead of the employer? Like, what is this? Seriously. He again acknowledges that interpreters didn't know the specific implementation date when we filed for representation, but somehow there was no doubt that it would happen. Even when LNI kept on changing dates and failing to implement, does that make any sense to you? Also, do you remember how WFSE kept saying that the scheduling system is not subject to bargaining? We showed you this in this video from back on September 3rd. Well, we proved that it actually is, and that PERC has jurisdiction to decide exactly that. That's why we complained and petitioned a hearing with PERC and not with the state's Attorney General, as WFSE would have you believe, Mr. Buck Ferguson. No. However, WFSE kept on lying about this, but what was Mr. Schneider's response concerning this matter? Well, he agreed that the portal had a negative impact, but incorrectly said that it was only on some interpreters. He also confirmed, though, that our evidence can determine if issues with the scheduling system are subject to bargaining according to the law. However, he decided to not even touch the subject. Finally, Mr. Schneider also dismissed WFSE's complaint with their weird argument to be in the hearing. WFSE said that LNI had to ask PERC for permission before changing our working conditions with the portal. You see, WFSE's lawyer was wrong about the law. Mr. Schneider confirmed there is no legal mechanism to support WFSE's argument on this matter. But of course, WFSE tried to hide the fact that their complaint was dismissed in their video shortly after the decision. But interpreters are smart, and they started roasting them on social media outlets. Finally, you see here that both complaints were dismissed. At this time, we are evaluating our options and will decide if we will appeal. We do have 20 days to file a notice of appeal though, and we also want the election to start already, so we will keep you informed. I also want to let you know that I had a medical procedure the day we received PERC's decision, and while our team was gathering the content for this video, that's the reason why I could not record the update the same day. So thank you for your patience. I also want to thank the few interpreters that knew about this. Thank you for your encouragement, support, and understanding. I really appreciate you. Now, I don't have much to say about WFSE slandering my name and taking videos that I made out of context. You see, nobody trashes your name better than those afraid that you'll tell people the truth. The reality is that I have always acknowledged there's been corruption in the LNI system by some interpreters and some agencies. But I also have said that it is LNI's job to go after the few people who engage in this kind of behavior. Also, a few bad apples does not justify restricting independent interpreters and eliminating businesses, especially when LNI has dealt with these people in a very effective manner. There is no need to punish everyone. Now, WFSE's most recent scam is actually generating fake numbers by asking interpreters to sign some online petition that does not even count with PERC. This is also a trick to get your personal information in order to harass you endlessly. You see, anybody can sign online petitions, even WFSE staff or the general public. This is not legally binding with PERC. Remember that WFSE failed to show enough signed cards to start the election when it really mattered months ago. We are now in the lead with PERC since then, and that hasn't changed. So do not be deceived. Oh, and one more thing. Do you know that WFSE also lies to everyone about their membership numbers? Well, I actually have the real number of members that they have in their books. And of course, I obtained this information via public disclosure request. You know me. Look at what they sent me. For the HCA interpreters on the month in question, only 786 interpreters were paid for appointments rendered. That's only 384 who were withheld deductions, meaning only 384 interpreters paid union dues. That's their membership. Less than 400 interpreters, not the 1,500 plus they tell you while lying to your face. How pathetic. Now compare that with the confirmed amount of valid cards that we submitted to PERC when it really mattered months ago. Once again, more than twice anybody else's. Now, before closing, I have a message for you, WFSE. You see, I know that we had a very bad breakup about 2 years ago? But you know what? It's over. Oh, and by the way, it wasn't me. It was you. It was always you. You know I had to let go of you because of your control, your lies, and your manipulative ways. You are really toxic, you know that. You know, for your own good, you should really stop obsessing about me. I really mean it. Yes, you lost me, and I know it really hurts, but you need closure. You need to move on. Get alive. My fellow long-time established LNI interpreters and those of you who are new to the LNI system, I know there are many issues with this Interpreting Works company because WFSE brought it to all of us without permission. I know. I also know that many of you have reported non-stop verbal abuse by Marisa Giglio, the owner of this horrible company. I want you to know that I really feel your pain, but remember, we're really closer now to have this election and to be able to get rid of WFSE and this horrible company. So hang in there. Let's have a real dual system without restrictions imposed on independent interpreters and with a company that actually pays on time and respects workers. I encourage you to avoid WFSE's toxicity and remember that it is possible for all of us to work together. Once we win the election, we will coexist. Like this video and subscribe to our channel in order to keep on getting more relevant information for our interpreting community. See you in the next video. Do not lose hope, and as always, God bless.